I messed up. Here you go. Sami part 4? 3? I don't know. I accidentally got out of that one, so I gotta find where I was. So he just got promoted to corporal. He was thrilled. Now he would become a supervisor. When Sami told his commanding officer, the major, we're on page 69, by the way. Sami thought was more, when Sami told his commanding officer, the major, Sami thought was more excited about the promotion than even he was. That this was happening near the beginning of the deployment was also a plus. Sami would now have more supervisory roles for the duration of the next 8 months or so left in his tour. He would join the supervisor clique too. He started anticipating the promotion ceremony where, by tradition, 2 other Marines carrying your new rank or higher pin you with your new rank insignia. He chose Dan in the major. But at the last minute, Sami was sent to Kuwait for a routine mission. He cursed his luck, and the ceremony ended up being held in an aircraft hangar far away from Al-Anbar. At least the major was with him, and after he pinned Sami, he said to the young man, "I feel privileged and honored. There's never been a Marine who deserved this more than you do." The words were deeply affecting to Sami. The major was the Marine of all Marines to him. If God had made a Marine, thought Sami, it's the major. And for him to say that, well, maybe I really am better than the average Marine. He returned to the camp a few days later and saw Dan. The first thing his friend did when he saw the new corporal was to sucker punch him hard in the gut. And Sami lost his breath. Delivering pain, that's the initiation. Iraqis were constantly filtering in and out of the camp, usually as workers of some sort, and Sami was doing all he could to avoid them. He didn't want to have any special relationships with them. He didn't want any of his friends or superiors questioning his loyalties, and he didn't want the Iraqis asking him what he, an Arab, was doing in Iraq. "What do you think I'm doing here? You don't see the blouse?" He had this conversation in his head over and over again. But, in fact, no one ever asked him. The pool tables in the rec room were usually occupied by the Arabic interpreters, often civilians who had come from the U.S. and were utilized by the military for their linguistic skills. Sorry, you might be on camera. You're not on camera. It's going that way. Sorry about that. I don't think you got on there. That was Abby. I just gotta do this last bit. Can I take a picture of you laying next to Denali, though? Mm-hmm. When you're in your blanket? Oh. Uh-oh. Oh, no. Denali must attack. Oh, I think she's gonna pee on her. That would be so funny. Denali, get off of your big sis. Oh. Oh, I'm loving attacking her. Denali, be nice. Big mutt. All right. Back to the task. I'm just going to record for a couple minutes. Is that okay? All right. You don't see the blouse. Okay. The pool tables in the rec room were usually occupied by the Arabic interpreters, often civilians who had come from the U.S. and were utilized by the military for their linguistic skills. Many of them were older, and one of them was an elderly Palestinian man who reminded Sami of his father. Sami and his father had had their differences in the past, but he found himself missing his father more and more. He became drawn to the pool tables in his free time. He took an automatic liking to the man and the others. They would all hang out, shoot games of 9-ball while talking in Arabic and English, and the Arab world and its history and complicated, sad politics. Perhaps for the first time in his life, Sami started to feel proud of his Arabic heritage. He learned more about his history from the interpreters, especially from this paternal Palestinian, than he had in his entire past. He could talk in Arabic to these guys and leave the Marines in the dark, having something on them. You know, these guys are happy about being Arab, he told me. Why can't I be happy about being Arab? He found himself talking more often to his parents on the phone. Dad, there's a Palestinian guy here, and he looks just like you. He talks like you, everything like you. He's funny and everything. That's good, his father said, as if he didn't know what else to say. That's good. Sammy's mother was overjoyed. Oh my God, Sammy, she said. Your Arabic is getting so much better, so much nicer. You know exactly what you're saying. He was speaking a lot more Arabic now, and he felt himself changing. How stupid he'd been when he was younger, he told me. Why did I shy away from my culture? He reflected a lot on his parents during this period, thinking about their incredible success. They had come to the U.S. with nothing, and now they have a $4 million house, and his father has his taxi medallion. All this for a man with no high school education. Let me see if there's a stopping point. Okay, I'll read to the next stopping point. In the beginning of their second deployment, the soldiers at the camp were allowed to walk around in regular uniform. But the camp started suffering mortar attacks, assaults, that were increasing in frequency and in intensity. The mortars were becoming so repetitive that the soldiers were ordered to wear their helmets and vests at all times, and the order only increased their frustration. Unlike during Sammy's first tour, the soldiers this time almost never left the camp. We weren't able to fight back, he said. We felt like, what are we doing here? We're not fighting anybody. We're sitting here on the radio and watching TV half the day, not doing anything. We can do this at home. They could hear explosions boom regularly in the distance. That really frustrated us, he said, because we felt that we were getting put into the position to fail. To see how long we could be here like this without getting hurt. We felt like sitting ducks. At 7 one morning, Sammy awoke to an explosion, the loudest noise he'd ever heard. The building rocked. The bang shook him out of bed. He walked into the open area of his building and saw 2 men, one lying on his back bleeding and another one staring in shock into his mangled hand. The medics were running to them. What the F just happened? Sammy yelled. A mortar had exploded next to the building. Sammy went outside and saw an enormous crater in the parking area. He saw the military vehicles, their bulletproof windows riddled with holes. He saw busted tires and fluid leaking out of the Humvees. And he saw a blouse, which is the word he keeps using for shirt, is blouse, covered in blood next to the crater. The blouse belonged to Gunnery Sergeant Lane, one of the first supervisors Sammy or his friends in the platoon had ever worked with. He was from upstate New York, and like Sammy, a huge Yankee fan. Everyone liked Gunny Lane. He was a man who knew his rank but never flaunted it. A career soldier. He'd been in the service for 15 years, 5 years away from his retirement. He was smart and generous, and the mood in the camp immediately pitched down when people heard that he was hurt. After the commotion subsided and the wounded were removed to medical care, Sammy and his friends sat outside, helmets on, to smoke. Nobody said a word for a long time. Everyone seemed to be thinking the same thing, but nobody wanted to talk until Sammy broke the silence. For what? He said. Somebody responded, for nothing. For BS, someone else said. They all shook their heads and stared at the ground. Sammy was thinking about how they had become almost cavalier in their attitudes, since nobody they were close to had gotten hurt in the war. They believed that everything was going to be all right. That it was basically work, gym, and TV until they got back to California. And then this happened. Reality set in. They were still in Iraq. They weren't going anywhere. The commanding officer soon called the entire company into a meeting. A colonel stood in the middle of the group of soldiers and started talking. As you know, one of our greatest supervisors was wounded. was wounded in today's attack, he said, then paused. We're saddened to say that he's gone. Like everyone else, Sami felt destroyed. But it was the way the gunnery sergeant had died that gnawed at him. This is the wrong guy to take, he thought. And he wasn't even doing anything. He died, headed to the bathroom. He had one kid and another one on the way, Sami recalled. And he talked about his son so much. He had a child who wouldn't know his father, who his father was. If you wanted to look at it like he died bravely, like he died for a cause, you could, he reasoned. But you knew it wasn't like that. He died going to the bathroom. It would be different if he died in a firefight, in a shootout. We could have tolerated that, he thought. We could have dealt with that. But Sami couldn't deal with him just answering the call of nature and then paying for it with his life. Who wants to die like that? Am I next?